Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So, what does food mean to you? Stay tuned for this segment. We're getting ready for spring now. It sure feels like spring is in the air, even though I know some places are still experiencing snow and cold weather. Here on the East Coast, we've been getting some pockets of actually warm weather, and I see the ducks out in the ponds and I hear the birds chirping, so I know spring is definitely coming. So stay tuned. We are doing a segment on how to have a self-reliant garden. It's time to get ready for planting, so prepare if you'd like to start your own garden, if you've never done it, or even if you've done it before. It's really fun and you'll get some great vegetables and fruits. So I'll be talking about how to have your own self-reliant garden, and also sharing a recipe for a strawberry risotto when you get those fresh strawberries in your garden, or if you can find some locally grown fresh strawberries. This is the perfect dish to try. And we also have a guest, Anthony Bracco, who has a large farm in New York State. He's going to share with us some tips on growing your own also. So stay tuned. And don't forget to save the date of April 8th. We are doing a Zoom class of my Italian Easter bread bake-along. We did not yet announce the link for Zoom, but it will be on April 8th, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're doing an Italian Easter bread bake-along. That is on April 8th, so please save the date. And thank you to everyone that attended the Neapolitan pizza class that we did with Rocco from Rocco's Dough in Miami, Florida. We did a Zoom class. He's a Neapolitan pizza expert, and we did sort of a pizza bake-along. And thanks to everyone that attended. We had a lot of fun. Do you still buy seeds every planting season? If so, you're wasting money and an opportunity to create your own self-reliant garden. Instead, you should preserve the seeds from the vegetables you've already grown and learn how to store them. One of the first steps is to clean the seeds. Separate dry seeds like beans and onions from their husks. Once dry, the husk will crumble away easily. Separate the seeds from the chaff using a method called screening. Plants such as tomatoes, squash, and melons contain wet seeds that you must separate from the pulp. Tomato seeds should be fermented first. Scoop the seeds, pulp, and a bit of water into a jar and keep it in a warm location until you notice bubbling or white mold. The process can take up to about 5 days. When ready to clean wet seeds, place the seeds and pulp into a bowl with water. While the pulp and dead seeds will float, the healthy seeds will sink to the bottom of the bowl. Pour the water, dead seeds, and pulp out of the bowl. Strain the final bit of water and pat the seeds in the strainer with a towel. Move the seeds to a glossy surface to prevent sticking and place in a cool, shady spot for several days to finish drying. Store dry seeds in jars. However, you will have issues with your self-reliant garden if your seeds are not fully dried. Dry seeds will not bend and will break or shatter when you hit them with a hammer. If your seeds are not fully dry, you can store them with silica gel for 2 more weeks to complete the drying process. Step 2 is to control the storage environment. According to online seed sales, a dark, cool storage environment is critical for preventing the seeds from starting to grow too soon. To preserve seeds for your garden, you should keep them at a constant cold temperature. When you remove the seeds from the jar, allow the entire container to warm to room temperature before opening it. Similarly, seeds should be stored in a climate with constant humidity. Insect damage is also a concern. It's impossible to weed out all insects, although freezing your seeds prevents them from sustaining more damage. Add enough diatomaceous earth to cover the seeds in the jar before sealing to protect them from insects. And remember, for step 3, practice makes perfect. No matter what you do, the storage process will cause some of the seeds to die and their longevity to be reduced. But through trial and error, you can develop your own self-reliant garden. So what are you waiting for? Now is a great time to start storing seeds to create a self-reliant garden right now. Springtime is the season that Mother Nature begins to really yell, "Wake up!" And springtime is just right around the corner. It's really not far off. From artichokes that can be boiled or baked and rich in fiber, vitamin C, carotenoids, and mineral salts, not to mention their natural properties, to strawberries and cherries. Fresh parsley and mint have real depurative properties, so eat some or use some to flavor your dishes. And to get an extra dose of their healthy benefits, get these fresh fruits and vegetables grown locally or grow your own, as we're talking about doing a self-reliant garden. Get them as local as possible. Shorter time from harvesting to arrive to your table, and you will experience that shock to your mouth, wake up, ultra fresh taste that says, wow, I'm tasting real food. So here's a dish that will give a true spring wake up to your mouth with fresh strawberries. I'm not sure if, depending on where you're located in the US or really anywhere in the world, not everybody can get fresh strawberries yet. You know, we do see strawberries, they're coming from all over the place, so they might not be local. But, you can try this, and when the fresh strawberries come in, the local stuff, definitely try it again with those. You will notice and experience a different taste when you taste those locally grown, or, as we talked about, grow them yourself, a self-reliant garden. And I just want to mention, I did this risotto with strawberries for a special Valentine's Day presentation for the Stratford Library in New Jersey on Zoom. We did do a program. Actually, it was a free program. Anyone could join in. So I just wanted to give the recipe for those of you that could not make it, and those of you that want to make this risotto with strawberries. So it's 4 cups of vegetable broth, 3 tablespoons of extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, 2 leeks chopped finely, 1 cup of arborio or carnaroli rice, a tablespoon of butter, a pinch of salt, a cup of Prosecco, Spumante, or dry white wine, 10 ounces of fresh strawberries washed and cut in half. You're going to heat the vegetable broth till boiling. Place the olive oil in a large saute pan. Place in the chopped leeks and saute the leeks until they're just about golden. Place in the rice and toast the rice till it's coated with oil and all the liquid is evaporated. Add in the wine or Prosecco. Stir till all the liquid is evaporated. Place in 1/2 cup of vegetable broth and stir till all that liquid is evaporated, and repeat, placing in 1/2 cup of liquid till evaporated till rice is al dente, approximately 15 minutes. Puree the strawberries. When the rice is almost done, place in the strawberry puree. Stir in well. Remove from the heat. Let it stand for 2 minutes. Place in 1 tablespoon of butter on top and stir till melted. Serve topped with grated Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. Decorate the plate with a strawberry garnish and serve with a glass of the dry white wine that you use to cook the strawberry risotto. Today, I have Anthony Bracco from Bracco Farms in Warwick, New York. And, it's Eat Your Vegetables Day on June 17th. And I'm always about promoting eating fresh vegetables and fresh produce. And Anthony has been doing this wonderful presentation at many places on Zoom, but many places have been hosting this on. Well, I'm going to let Anthony tell us all about it. Anthony, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
And Anthony, so tell us, I know you were telling me a great story about why you started doing this. It's a victory garden type of tour.
What we did was before the COVID pandemic, we were talking at a lot of libraries and garden clubs about adapting, because what we have is a small farm. We're not a large farm. It's a family farm, 20 acres,
Yeah.
25 acres actually.
Uh-huh.
And we found that before I had the farm, I was an avid gardener. So now that we have the farm, there's a lot of tools that we use at the farm that can be used in a backyard garden that are not, you don't need a tractor, you don't need all these automatic things, but there are a lot of hand tools. And I had this idea that we could share like small farm methods to be used in a backyard garden to make backyard gardening more fun and more farm-like.
Uh-huh.
But with the advent of the pandemic,
Yes.
we were not able to go to libraries and do the live presentation anymore. So we were thinking, it was actually one of the librarians who said to us, "Would you think about doing a Zoom?" And I said, "Okay, I'll try it." But we do a lot of tool demonstrations. We'd have a lot of handouts. We'll have to figure out how to handle all this. And we
Yes.
did about 6 of them last year. But then over the winter, I had the idea of saying, instead of adapting small farm methods to a backyard garden, why don't we turn it into a victory garden, a model after the victory gardens of World War I and World War II? Because the pandemic is kind of like a war, and you're fighting, especially when we were talking about food shortages, delivery problems, the food chain and food safety and all that. So people were approaching me saying, "How do I start my own garden? I want to be able to grow at least some food myself." So I said, "You know what? We'll use the old victory garden method." So I presented that to the libraries and garden clubs, and they really jumped on it. And as I was telling you, we went from having 6 talks last year, but pre-pandemic, we would do about 18 to 20 live. This year we're at 30. Actually, we just booked one yesterday. We're at 33.
Wow. Wow, that's wonderful. I know that's been becoming more popular, gardening at home, which I mean, I was happy to hear because, people were home a lot more.
Right, they were homebound, right?
Yes, or homebound, and it's a lot better to be out gardening than sitting in watching television. So I think that's great that you're out there teaching them how to do that. So can you give us some tips for people and some things people can do that want to just do, have a backyard garden?
Well, yeah, sure. It depends. Like everybody's garden and everybody's situation is a little bit different. So you have people who have full sun, people who have partial shade, people whose gardens are on an incline or they're so they don't have a level yard. But there are ways to get around that. So you can, you can do terrace gardening. For example, if your garden is sloped, your yard, there's a way to do it by terracing. So you have little areas. If you have a regular level yard, you can do an open plan where you just turn some of the soil over and make a garden there, or you can frame it in with wood and make like a raised bed. Where it's a little bit more contained. You don't worry about erosion because the soil is contained in the frame. And as I was mentioning to you before, a very popular method now is pallet gardening, taking old pallets, putting them in your garden and filling them with soil. And in between each of the boards or the slats, people are planting. And it works great because it's not a permanent garden. You can move it around. The boards act as weed blocks, so the weeds don't come up. Your crops come up, and they look very appealing because it's old wood, and you can age them by adding some stain or mineral oil to bring out the grain, and it looks like almost like a piece of furniture.
And that's a great way too, with wood now, because I actually I went out in my own garden and I have some raised beds. But the price of wood now, oh my gosh, it's horrible. And then it's even hard to find sometimes. So, doing a pallet garden, I think makes a great substitute if you don't want to
pallets. And as I tell everybody in the talks, pallets, you can get them, go to any tile or granite place, they have signs, take them, because they want to get rid of it, because everything's delivered on these pallets.
Oh,
For
yes.
example, my son, he works at a garden center a few days a week.
Uh-huh.
And his boss said to him, tell your father if he needs any pallets, we have so many pallets that the plants get delivered on. And I said, you know what? I'm going to follow my own advice. And what we started doing at the farm
Uh-huh.
is we don't grow a lot of herbs, because little goes a long way. So we're
Yes.
making a line of pallets, and we're growing the herbs in the pallets. And
Great idea.
so, and
That's great.
it's right outside our greenhouse. So
Yes.
when people come to the farm, they see all the nice different, the oregano, the basil, the sage, things like that. And they're perennials, so they'll come back every year.
Uh-huh.
And just can, that's the other thing too, if you have a pallet garden, you want to grow herbs, a
Uh-huh.
lot of times in the fall, you just cut them back and then cover them with some straw, and it'll protect the roots so they come back strong next year. So
Oh,
there's
that's a
things like
great idea. So in other words, you're saying, so with a pallet garden, so let's say the season is done, you're going to just put straw on top
Yeah,
of them
we'll cut back all the oregano, let's say, leave it just a little high. We
right,
cut it back and then cover it with some hay or straw. You can buy hay bales, are only like $5 a bale.
right,
And
right.
a little goes a long, one bale goes a long way. And then
Yes.
you just cover it with the straw over the winter. It'll keep the roots from freezing.
Uh-huh.
And then in the spring, you can just take the straw off, and then they'll come back. Goes sage, all these rosemary, they're all perennials. Most herbs are perennials. So they'll basil isn't, it's an annual, but there are
Yes.
uh, certain ones, especially oregano. We've been growing oregano in the same area at the farm for 10 years, the same plants. So
Wow, wow.
they're
And
coming back.
herbs, I think, are probably a good thing for people that maybe haven't really done gardening to
Right.
start with, right?
Right, you find yourself a good garden center that in your area to go to. I always recommend the garden center over a box store, because you're going to get superior product in the garden
Yes.
center. And you have people who work there that know what they're talking about.
Something.
So,
Yeah.
and you get a better product. For example, the farm this year, we usually go to another farm to get our plugs of basil, which is like 288 little plugs of seedlings in a
Yes.
flat, and we transplant them, but they were out of basil. So I went to the garden center where my son works,
Uh-huh.
and they had some beautiful basil from South Jersey.
Uh-huh.
So, but I would never find that anywhere in any
Yeah.
box, or it would be terrible.
Oh,
So we
yes.
transplanted it, and it's fine. So
Yes.
so that's what I always recommend. Go to a good garden center for your fertilizer, for
Ah.
things of that type. You don't want to use any synthetic fertilizers. You want all
Yes.
natural, everything natural. Same thing with any insecticides or herbicides that you may need to control. There's always a natural solution,
Yes.
and, to it. And that's what I promote in the talks, is to make it as natural as possible. For example, when a lot of time people will come to me, oh, I bought some nice boards to make my raised beds. Well, what did they buy? They bought the treated lumber.
Oh,
The
my
treated lumber
gosh.
is full of formaldehyde. So,
Yes, yes. You can't use that.
so I would say, you know what you should do? I have a method. What you do is you buy your regular spruce, fir, or pine boards.
Yes.
And then we came up with a concoction that we saw on PBS years ago.
Yes.
You mix natural mineral spirits or denatured alcohol
Yes.
with boiled linseed oil.
Okay.
And then you roller it, apply it with a roller, and it soaks into the wood 2 or 3 coats, and
Uh-huh.
it'll last as long as the treated lumber, and it's non-toxic.
Oh, that's
So,
great. Yes,
so,
that is one thing. I'm glad you brought that point out. The treated lumber, you cannot use that for a
No.
raised bed. So people don't realize it. And it is cheaper than the cedar. So people might go to that, but it's not
Right,
the
it's not
best.
a good way.
No.
But if you get pine is very porous.
Uh-huh.
So pine lends itself, if you're going to do the coating that I said with the denatured alcohol,
Right.
or the natural mineral spirits mixed with the linseed oil,
Yes.
it'll soak into the wood. And you do 2 or 3 coats, and it lasts. We did that in our raised beds in our greenhouse.
Yes.
In 2010, we're only replacing the boards now. And
Oh,
they've been now in a greenhouse, they're in all kinds of conditions. They're in heat, they're in cold, they're in constant moisture, and they lasted 12 years.
Well, so they've lasted. Well, that's good. That's good to know. I didn't know that, because the last raised bed I just got cedar, which just cost a fortune.
Cedars, especially now.
Oh
It's
gosh.
horrible.
So I'm going to try that for my next one. That's a great idea. Definitely a good idea. So I guess the last thing would be, so do you think, I was just going to say, what would be the first types of things you think people that aren't really experienced gardeners should grow? And we had said herbs. Is there anything
Herbs is
else?
one thing. Anything that you can buy that's already started,
Mhm.
that's already, like, if you can get little potted little sets, where you get
Yes.
four a set. So I recommend for people, start with tomatoes, the basics: tomatoes,
Yes.
eggplant, peppers, zucchinis. Unless you have a big area, zucchini is going to take up a lot of room. You don't want to do that. Unless
Yes.
you really want zucchini, you'll maybe get one
Yeah,
plant in a 4-foot area. So
exactly.
but what you want to do is you want to start with those, and you go to your garden center. So maybe you get 4 tomato plants, you get 4 pepper plants, a few eggplant. Then with lettuce, you can buy them already started.
Uh-huh.
Or lettuce is so easy. You just drop the seeds in, and they come up. It's like weeds. They just come up.
Yes.
So lettuce, you get some good satisfaction out of that. Any
Yes.
type of lettuces, you can buy little packages of them. And I also recommend like there are seed sources that I have, that what I do is, when I do the talk, I have a series of handouts that I do, that I show on the screen, where
Yes.
all my recommended seed sources, recommended books to read, and all that. I can make that available to your audience too.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. We can make that available. People
Mhm.
can actually, what I'll do is I'll put this on my blog, and we'll do a post about this podcast. And if you can send me that information, anybody listening, we can make that available.
Right.
Well, yes, definitely. And Anthony, tell us, where can we find, like, if somebody wants to attend on Zoom one of these presentations?
If you look on my website, which is broccofarms.com,
Uh-huh.
we have a Farm Talks page, and we have a listing of all the libraries
Great.
where the talks will be. We have a 3-part series we're doing with the town of Valley Cottage.
Uh-huh.
They want me to do 3 talks, one just take everybody through all the different steps. So
Wow.
beginning at the end of June,
Uh-huh.
July, and August.
Uh-huh.
We have a few more coming up now, but we're kind of at the tail end of the season, but we're always adding more because the libraries are always calling me. And
Yes.
the links are on the library website, so you can
Uh-huh.
sign up. And we'll be doing one, I think we're doing Nyack tonight,
Uh-huh.
or we're doing the town of Mawa. And
Wow.
I have to look at my schedule.
Yes, that's okay. People can look it up. And also, I just want to mention Rocco Farms. I'm still intending to get out there one of these days, because that looks like you have such wonderful, I know you have organic and sustainable produce, and I've heard a lot. I know the last time you were on my show, you were telling us all about this special soil
Right.
that's there. So people need to take a notice of your farm too, and the things that you're producing there.
That's correct, because we are, like today, what happened was, we were with this week, we've been planting all our tomato plants,
Uh-huh.
different varieties. So we waited after the rain to put them in, because the soil is nice and moist. And
Yes.
so we've been putting in, we have 15 varieties we're growing this year.
Uh-huh.
Hybrids to heirlooms. And that's the thing, when you have your garden, you can experiment. No one says you just have to grow Roma tomatoes to make sauce. You can use any tomato to make sauce. Mix some heirlooms together, get some cherry tomatoes, mix them together. You can experiment. That's what you want to do. You want to have fun with it. And there's one particular source, and I mentioned this in all my talks.
Yes.
There's an organization called Seed Savers Organization. They're out in the Midwest.
Yes.
And I make that available with my handouts. They are an organization that saves seed, or they get heritage and heirloom seeds that they can trace the lineage back hundreds of years. So if you want a particular, let's say, Maria, you want to grow a particular tomato, like they'll tell you, well, this tomato started in Italy in the 1600s. It was brought to the United States in the 1850s, and the seeds are they're still breeding it, so the seeds are available today.
Yes, yes, and that's so interesting.
Everything.
Yeah, that's interesting,
because but nobody knows about it.
No, and people, most people think, okay, a tomato is just a tomato, like what they see at their grocery store. They don't realize there were zillions of types of tomatoes. The grocery stores only sell 1 or 2 types, maybe, because they don't want to be bothered with all these different varieties. But you doing the garden yourself, you'll have a chance to
Yeah.
actually, right, try some of these varieties if you get to that seed savers. Oh, that's great. Thanks so much for all the info.
Mhm.
And thanks so much for being here. I
Well,
know
thank
you're
you
really
so
busy
much.
too. And hopefully somebody will also, some of my listeners will also attend some of your presentations, and I'll have this information available on my website, and that's broccofarms.com, right?
That's correct.
Yes, they can find you there. Thanks again, Anthony.
Okay,
We'll be
thank you.
talking to you soon. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay,
Thank
take
you.
care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show, and thanks to my producer, Britton Roselle, and thanks for joining us. And don't forget to save the date, April 8th, an Italian Easter bread bake-along. We will be announcing the link and more information on how to register for that. The registration will be limited. So if you'd like to, you can sign up for my blog. Go to marialiberati.com, sign up for my blog, and you'll get an email letting you know when the program will be, when you can register. It is on April 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will be on Eventbrite, so you will be able to register on Eventbrite, but we haven't sent out any links yet. So registration is not open yet, but please save the date. That's April 8th. And in the meantime, you can find me on Facebook at Chef Maria Liberati, on Instagram at Maria Liberati, on Twitter at Maria Liberati, on LinkedIn at M Liberati, on Pinterest at Maria Liberati, on my Roku channel, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking by Maria Liberati. And you can also find me in my book series, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, my Gourmand World award-winning book series. And you can find those books anywhere books are sold online or offline. And you can certainly find them at marialiberati.com and artoflivingprimamedia.com. Until next time, peace, love, and pasta.